Marshall Morgan, and I'm originally from Durham, North Carolina, and I live now in Bridgewater, Mass. I moved up north in 1952. At that time, I was 26. The reason I came up north here, my friend that he was in the service at that time, and he was from Massachusetts, and he came down on vacation. And at that time, I was unemployed, and that's why how I came to be in Massachusetts, and I stayed with him for a while, and then I got married, and that's where I've been ever since, over 50 years ago. Down south, it was nice. At that time, jobs were mostly limited. I had been uh, working for the A&P Tea Company at that time, and I got tired of working for the A&P, and and while he was there on vacation, he said, "Well, why don't you come on back to Massachusetts with me?" He says, "We'll find a job." At that time, the shoe factories and all were really humming in Brockton. So I went to work at Avon Soul and working part-time for Fruitland in Brockton. Yes, it was quite a few, yes, yes. They were hiring, it wasn't discriminatory down as it was down south, certain jobs that, you just was hired to do, and certain jobs you weren't hired to do. Didn't care about your education, I was a high school graduate, but that didn't mean anything for certain jobs, certain opportunity just was available for you. Yes, it was to a point, yes. It was better, I say, but it wasn't perfect by a long shot. Well, yes, because I was making more money, and the bottom line is money, So I was getting married and didn't have much of an income, and so I worked two jobs, and you know, I did better than I did down south because, like I said, jobs were very hard to come by at that time. Yeah, because they just wouldn't hire you. You would go there, and if it wasn't, you know, really labor, basically hard labor, you couldn't hire you couldn't get hired. If we when I was working at the A&P, we basically worked in the produce department where, didn't care how much education you had. You didn't need no education to work in the produce department, So we could at that time we weren't allowed to work in the grocery department, due to the fact that, like I said, of your skin color. Well, life was easier because at least you could go to the stores and everything, or sit down and get a meal, and you wasn't, you know, discriminated against. Although I can't say that that a friend and I, we were in Boston, and we went to Howard Johnson there after a Celtics game, and we had to call the Rockets there because they wouldn't serve us in Boston, at a Howard Johnson. So, you know, problems still existed then, but not as bad as they were down south. And down south, they just didn't serve you, period. Oh, that was 50 years ago, 45, 50 years ago. Oh, I don't know now. So much going on now. Yes, I think you're safer in the north than you are in the south. Oh, I went down south, back down south the next year. Oh yeah, and I went every year, basically, because that's where the wife. She was from at that time. She was from Alexandria, Virginia, but I went down south uh, every year, but just for vacation. There's no problem, that way. I never really had any problem as far as driving and getting service on the highway, but no, it was no problem there. In Bridgewater, it was a new development that they built. I wouldn't say a development. I think they built three houses in that particular area, and it was mixed, and it was white there also, but no problem, and we've been there ever since. Worked in the shoe factory at Avon Soul, and like I said, part time at Fruitland. I was comfortable. I was comfortable there. I just moving. No, I says, if we ever get sold down, this is it, and that's where we've been ever since that time. Well, they have crossed my mind, but no, no. I really haven't had no second thoughts because, first of all, I don't have any family down there, and the wife, she has a brother and a brother-in-law down there, and I don't think she's too interested in going down there because all her friends mostly are up here. She's been here for so long. She's been here ever since, but she's been here uh, pretty close to 50 years. I met her in North Carolina, yes. Yes. Oh, no, no, I was the only one that moved north. They all stayed put. They didn't mind, no, they didn't mind. No, not really. Things, you know, with all the action that was going on as far as, integration and all was concerned, things improved over the years. So it's much better down that way now than it was then.